Good evening, visitors. Welcome to the Australian War Memorial's Last Post ceremony. My name is Yana Johnson, and joining us today from the Royal Australian Navy is Chief Petty Officer Liz Miller. We warmly welcome the family of Private James Archibald Randell, whose story will be told shortly. We are honoured to acknowledge General Ngati Wong Isaret, Director General Joint Intelligence, HQ Royal Thai Armed Forces, Thailand. We warmly welcome the veterans who have served, those that are still serving, and the families that love and support them. We acknowledge the members of RSL Services Clubs Association, RSL Victoria, and RSL Queensland who are watching the broadcast of this ceremony across Australia. During this evening's ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the pool reflection by family and visitors to the memorial. If you are able, please stand and join in singing the national anthem. The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through to the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where families and friends could mourn loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which he remained true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit, in the heart of the land they loved, and here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight, we'll read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 102,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and operations for more than a century. But first, we present a lament, Flowers of the Forest. Wreaths of floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the pool reflection.
Today, we remember and pay tribute to Private James Archibald Randell. James Randell, known as Archie to his family and friends, was born on the 24th of February 1893, the son of John and Margaret Randell of Rockhampton, Queensland. Randell was the second of 3 children and the family's only son. He attended the local state school and later worked as a motor mechanic and saddler. He lived in Pentland, the west of Mackay. Randell enlisted in the Australian Imperial Force on the 10th of January 1916 at Charters Towers and joined the reinforcements of the 52nd Infantry Battalion. He spent nearly 5 months training with his battalion in Australia, and while visiting Brisbane, he wrote home to his younger sister Rhoda, "By Jove, it's so different down here from bush life. I got such an eye-opener." Randell embarked from Brisbane in May 1916 and after a brief stopover in Alexandria in Egypt, sailed for England where he arrived in August. In November 1916, he sailed for France and joined the 52nd Infantry Battalion in the trenches of the Western Front, just in time for the bitter winter of 1916 and 1917. The wintry conditions and the trench warfare, so different from Randell's home in rural Queensland, took their toll. In December, he was hospitalised with bronchitis. His illness was so severe that he was sent to England for recovery, where he contracted the mumps. These 2 illnesses saw him away from the war for many months, and he did not rejoin until the 30th of September 1917. A month later, Randell was on the front line in Brunside Ridge in Belgium, where his battalion came under heavy German high-explosive artillery shelling. He received a shrapnel wound to his chin that saw him hospitalised for the 2nd time. His family received news that he was injured, but did not have details as to the nature and extent of his wounds. In November 1917, his older sister Ruby wrote to the authorities pleading for information. She wrote, "I am very anxious about him. He is my only brother." Randell rejoined the 52nd Battalion in November 1917 and again endured the hardships of the winter in the trenches of the Western Front. In March 1918, bolstered by the newly arrived troops from the Eastern Front, the Germans launched a major offensive along the Western Front in a final bid to win the war. During this difficult period, Randell and the 52nd Battalion defended the line on the River Anche in France. On the 5th of April, in Darnacourt, they assisted in successfully defending against the largest attack on Australian forces conducted by the German forces in the war. In late April 19, Randell and his unit took part in the Australian operations to retake the village of Villers-Bretonneux. At 10 p.m. on the 24th of April 1918, the attack began. The Australians encountered heavy German high-explosive and shrapnel artillery fire, as well as a strong defence from machine gun positions in the wood of the south of the village. Randell received gunshot wounds to his arm and fractured skull. He was evacuated to the nearby field ambulance and eventually to casualty clearing station, but on the 29th of April he died of his wounds. He was 25 years old. Private James Archibald Randell is listed on the Roll of Honour on my right among almost 62,000 Australians who died while serving in the First World War. His photograph is displayed today by the Pool of Reflection. This is but one of many stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember Private James Archibald Randell, who gave his life for us, for our freedom, and in the hope of a better world.
Please stand for the reading the ode and the sounding the last post.
They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun, and in the morning we will remember them.
We will remember them.
Lest we forget.
Lest we forget. We leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Poziere, or in the low scrub at Gallipoli, with his poor, tired senses, barely working through the fever of his brain, has thought in his last moments, well, it's over. But in Australia, they'll be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, girls and boys, that concludes the last post ceremony. We thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial, and we wish you all a very good evening.